This past week's Parsha, Vayetze, is one that I've loved for years because in it we meet, most of Jacob's sons are born, and so we get the etymologies of their names. And I've loved names forever, since probably reading Tolkien as a kid. And that's why I've loved so much, putting so much energy into naming our own kids. So I went back to the naming of the kids this year, and the first five are quite straightforward, and the sixth, Naphtali, with a little bit of dictionary work, becomes pretty clear, and I'll be probably speaking about that next week, so stay tuned. And then you get to Gad. And Gad is kind of an outlier. Leah, he's the son of Zilpah, Leah's handmaid, and when Leah names him, she says a single word, which we read as two words. She says, Ba Gad. God has come. And it's not clear exactly what that means. So one translation, according to Rashi and Ibn Ezra, is luck, based on an obscure line in Isaiah, and also apparently based on the Arabic, according to Ibn Ezra. And that seems to be the translation that the interpretation that our translation has followed. What luck, fortune has come to me that I have this other kid. Seems a little odd. Then there's another interpretation that it comes from Gdud, which is a troop, or sort of a military unit, still a word that's still used today in modern Hebrew. So the idea here is that Leah now has 5 sons attributed to her, 4 of her own and 1 of her handmaids, and so that's enough to really constitute a troop, a group. Okay, maybe. And then Rashi offers this other explanation, and he really seems in his language to be shying away from this, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought it made sense. Because while we read Ba Gad as 2 words, the text actually that's written in the Torah scroll is just a single word. It says Bagad, Bet Gimel Daled, which means betrayed. And the Masoretes, the ancient scribes who fixed the text of the Torah and also the way we interpret it, did this Kriik Tiv, where they modified the text to be read a different way, which seems like almost a pious move on their part. They saw this word betray and were deeply uncomfortable, and so they added an aleph to make it God has come, which was more palatable to them. And the more I looked at it, the more this seemed reasonable, in part because you look at it the context of the rest of the naming of the sons. And they all get what looks like a full sentence, 4 words, 6 words, 8 words, that's expressing how the mother feels in this moment and the significance she ascribes to the naming of her son. And Leah, when she names God, says just a single word, Bagad. And it just feels to me like this word is seething with anger and with resentment at a betrayal. And so the next question, of course, becomes, what's the betrayal? So it seems pretty clear that Jacob has betrayed somebody, and that's the name she's putting on her child. And you can read that, I think, in several different ways. Has Jacob betrayed Leah by sleeping with the handmaids? Has she betrayed Leah and Rachel together by sleeping with the handmaids? And so what you see here is this inscribing, this playing out of the relationship among the wives, who are also sisters, and then with the whole family, is inscribed on the names of the sons. And the question is, what do we make of that? What do we understand from Leah giving this boy, this baby, such a charged name, betrayal? So again, I don't have a clear answer for you, but a few possibilities play themselves out. One is you look at the next kid who's born, also to Zilpah, the handmaid, and she names him, Leah names him Asher, happiness. So one way to read that is as a sort of regret, a sort of tshuva. She'd be like, oh my God, I named this son betrayal. That was terrible. I've got to do better. Like I've got to make up for that with the next one. Second possibility, when she names Asher, she says this funny thing. She says, Ishruni banot, daughters have made me happy. Except, as far as we can tell from the text, she doesn't have any daughters yet. Her one daughter, Dinah, is born later, at the end of the story about all the sons. So who are these daughters? One possibility is that it's daughters that she had that weren't named in the text, and that's borne out by a line later in Genesis that talks about Jacob's sons and daughters, plural, even though only one, Dinah, is named. That seems a little fanciful to me. Maybe a better interpretation is banot, or daughters of just kind of daughters of men in general, other women, in other words. And so how have other women made her happy? Maybe indicating some kind of rapprochement, some kind of reconfiguration of the family constellation. So up until now, we've seen Rachel and Leah in real tension with each other, in real competition. maybe as time has gone on, they start to align with each other more against their husband, who seems to not really care which one of them he sleeps with, or how he loves one more than the other. And then we might even take that a third step to beyond sort of a détente to Leah really looking out for her sister. So there's another midrash that I love in Brachot 60a from the Talmud. And Abby Stein quoted it in her Dvar Torah for Trua for this past week. So if you want to go look that up, it's a phenomenal Dvar Torah about trans issues and about representation. But so the midrash is that Leah and Rachel knew that Jacob was destined to have 12 sons. And when Leah got pregnant for the 7th time, she did the math and she realized that if the fetus she was carrying were a boy, then her sister Rachel wouldn't have the opportunity to even have as many sons as the handmaids, because you would have had 7 sons of Leah, 2 each of Bilhah and Zilpah, would have left only 1 for Rachel. And Leah didn't want that disgrace, that ignominy, to fall on her sister, and so she prayed that the fetus she was carrying would be a daughter. And so according to the Midrash, the fetus was actually changed from male to female, and so thus Dinah was born. So what you see from that Midrash is Leah really, really loving her sister and really caring for her sister's well-being, not just in terms of a power struggle within this odd family of who is loved more than whom and who's more valuable than whom, but really just wanting her to be happy, wanting her to be honored. And so whichever way you want to interpret the betrayal, as we were leaving Shul, Noah Garfinkel also said to me, maybe the betrayal is Lavan betraying Jacob, and so Leah's inscribed that on her handmaid son's name, which I suppose is possible, though feels a little less likely to me, because there's nothing to indicate that at that particular moment in the sequence of the narrative is when Lavan is betraying them. But however you choose to read it, I think we should keep in mind God betrayal and this kind of dark secret at the core of one of the names, and also just the way all the family dynamics got played out on the sons. And stay tuned for next week when I have some interesting, I hope, thoughts to share with you about Naphtali and his name. Shavua Tov.